Today, we're going to discuss how you can safely transition from being an employee to freelancing, all while raising a family. So, you're raising a family, you're the only income provider, you have a 9-to-5 job, you don't like the morning commute, you don't like being gone all day, you don't like having somebody else control how you work, where you work, when you work, how much you work, how much you earn, and you're ready for the world of self-employment. You've considered it, maybe you've learned a lot about it, but now you're unsure how to transition. How do you safely transition from being an employee to freelancing so that your family's needs are still taken care of? Because that's one of the biggest worries I had as a dad who was the only income provider for my family when I had an employee job. How do I transition without compromising my family's financial security? When I made the transition myself, there were mistakes that I made. Ultimately, there was things that I did right and things that I did wrong, and I'm hoping that you can do a lot more things right as you make the transition so that you don't compromise your family's needs, so that your wife, your kids, they still feel like they're being taken care of and they are able to join you in this, what is a bit of a jump, a bit of a leap of faith, a bit of a risk, but will ultimately lead to your family's greater happiness so that you can be with them more, so that you can have flexibility over your career and your work schedule, so that you can have more control of your income and ultimately provide a more comfortable life for your family. The biggest fear I had was, is freelancing going to be stable enough? I need stability. I have a family. I am not just living in my parents' basement. I need stability. And I feared that I wouldn't be able to pay my bills and that I wouldn't be able to provide as I made that transition. That's a very natural fear. It's very valid. But one of the thoughts that helped me get through that fear was this, that providing for my family was more than just the money that I provided them. It was also my time, that I might have been providing for them through money, through paying the bills, buying food, having a house to live in, etc. But as an employee, I wasn't providing for them the time that they deserved, that I wanted to be giving them. And that's another important part of providing that we sometimes forget about, that we get caught, especially as a dad, sometimes we can get caught in this belief of, okay, if I work 60 hours a week, it's all for them. I'm providing for their needs. But underneath it all they want is you. They just want your time more than anything else. They'd be fine to live in a small little apartment the rest of their life as long as they had you in their life. So that kind of thought, that rationale is what helped me enroll my wife into the idea of freelancing and being able to support me in that transition, because I would only have to work 20 to 25 hours a week and I would be able to earn enough money to support us. And especially with her being a new mom, she's like, oh, that'd be great to have some help with the kids, that I'm not just having to put in essentially 40 plus hours a week by myself with helping with kids. Now, with that said, it's important to pay your bills. You don't want to become homeless. And ultimately, that's the underlying fear, right? That you're going to get kicked out of your house, that your family's going to become homeless, that you're going to starve to death. This won't happen if you approach this transition responsibly. And even if you make a bunch of mistakes or have a long learning curve, you're still unlikely to become homeless unless you choose to. That's always in your control. And it's in your control to earn enough income to at least pay for the basics to be able to survive during this transition. So here are the steps to quitting your job and freelancing. With starting a business, with freelancing, it's going to take some time. So the first thing you need to know is don't abandon your current job just yet. You have a lot of learning and foundation work to do first, and how long that's going to take you totally depends upon you. Depends upon how long it takes you to learn some things, to develop some skills, to create some connections. Everyone's timeline is going to be very, very different depending on a lot of things. Step one to making this transition is to write down your why for taking this self-employment road. You got to have a very strong reason for it, because it's going to feel uncomfortable, and you need to have an understanding of what that reason is, and your wife needs to be enrolled in that. Is it because you want more time with your family? Is it more flexibility in your schedule, more autonomy over your work, more control over your income? Write down as much detail as possible as to why you want to freelance, so that you and your spouse and your kids, if they're old enough to understand what's going on, all understand why you're doing this, and they're all there to support you in this transition. Step 2 is you must create a financial plan with your wife. So this plan, now I'm speaking primarily to a freelancing dad, which is why I keep referring to, plan with your wife, etc., because that's what I am. I'm a freelancing dad. Now, everything I'm teaching in this video is absolutely relevant to any freelancing mom as well, if they're the provider for the family. So just don't let it throw you off that I'm speaking mainly to dads. That's who I am, and so that's who I have the easiest time resonating with. But just know that if you're a freelancing mom who is the main provider for your family, you can absolutely take everything I'm saying and apply it to yourself. So, create a financial plan. This plan should include numbers about your current employment, whether it's enough to cover your bills with a little bit of padding. You don't want to live paycheck to paycheck throughout this whole process, meaning you're earning just enough to pay your bills and get the bare essentials for food. You want to have a little bit of padding as well throughout this process, or you're going to come across very desperate as you're trying to get clients and as you're trying to get your business going. Now, this financial plan should include a budget for your spending, and it should include your expected current income, and make sure that that's all balanced out so that you're not getting into debt. Don't be getting into debt to transition into freelancing. Then you're going to have a big hole you have to crawl out of as you are freelancing. That's what I did. I got into a lot of debt while I transitioned into freelancing. And yeah, I was eventually able to crawl myself out of that hole, but there was a lot of money that ended up going towards paying off debt that could have went towards, saving up for a house or other financial goals that we had earlier if we didn't get into so much debt. So don't make that mistake. If you want some more details on this financial plan, go ahead and download my free book on my website, freelancingdads.com. You'll see a link right there where you can enter your name and email. And in that book, I go into much more detail on this financial plan and many other things related to building a freelancing business while putting family first. Now, step 3 is to choose a focus for your freelancing. So what set of skills or skill will you be selling as a service? If you're struggling with this step, definitely read my blog post all about the different careers that you can do as a freelancer. It's called, I think, 150 Ways to Freelance. It's on airlight.tv. Go ahead and check that out. There are a lot of different things that you can do as a freelancer, more than you may realize. So figure out what skill you want to focus on as a freelancer. Get that written down somewhere. Okay, step 4 is to develop any skills that you need to in order to perform well at that focus you chose. So if you want to be a freelance video editor, make sure that you know how to edit videos. If you don't, practice, you get really good at it. Chances are you already have a skill that you can use in your freelance business, and I recommend you going with a skill you already have, because that will shorten this whole timeline. If you have to develop a brand new skill you don't have yet, then that could take time as you're trying to plug that into your schedule with work, with family, and then trying to develop a brand new skill. Try to go off skills that you already have, and then you can always add to it later on. And one thing to note here is that you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be the world's top expert in whatever this skill is to start selling it as a service. You just need to be good enough to be able to sell it at a starting entry-level rate and know that you're giving enough value. Now, step 5 is to figure out your ideal client. So who are you going to sell your services to? Businesses, individuals, what types of businesses? Now, at first you might think that, my skill is relevant to a lot of different people or a lot of different businesses. But I recommend picking a specific type of business, even over individuals, because you're going to make more money serving businesses. They have more money to invest in you. You can always serve individuals later on, or if you're really passionate about that, maybe you're a life coach or something and you're serving individuals. and that's fine. My experience is with serving businesses, and it is easier to make more money through that, at least at first, for sure. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that you're going to serve every business. Oh, every business needs a website. I'm a website designer. You're going to struggle to find clients if you don't focus in your niche enough. If you promote yourself as a website designer for clothing and fashion businesses, you're going to have a much easier time being seen as an expert in that specific industry, and you'll have an easier time finding clients, and it makes you much more competitive. Whereas if you sell yourself as a website designer for all businesses, now you're competing against a lot more freelancers, and you're not going to be seen as much of an expert in a particular industry. So specializing in a specific target audience is what helped get my freelance business off the ground. I was selling video marketing services, but not to everyone. I decided to focus on YouTube for online education companies. And then the clients started to line up because I was one of only a couple who was focusing on that particular niche. So one, I can charge more because there wasn't as much supply for an expert in that niche. And two, I was able to really become an expert in that one thing. Now, over time, I was able to expand my target audience into other industries, but I needed to start very, very focused. And I still keep my services focused on a overall type of video production, overall type of business, but I have included more into my target audience than I did at the very beginning. I still have a core target audience that's the ideal best fit, but I also work with some people in those outer layers. And step 6 is to start building a portfolio of samples of your work. This portfolio does not have to include work you've done for paying clients. If you've never freelanced before, then you're not going to have pieces that you've done for paying clients. So you can literally just use practice projects that you did as part of your portfolio. If I started out doing video editing as a freelancer, so I had a bunch of videos that I had edited just for my own personal projects or for school projects, and I used that as part of my portfolio. They just need to see proof that you have the skill you say you have. So even if you have to create and make up your own project that you're not doing for a client, just so you can prove your skill, then do that. Now, if your skill is not something visual like writing, video editing, graphic design, it's more results focused. You're helping somebody get a particular result, maybe as a consultant or a coach or something, then you need testimonials over a portfolio. And those testimonials you need to get from people that you've worked with. But if you haven't worked with paying clients yet, then you just need to find some people, friends or family, that are willing to be a test subject and work with you and go through your program or test out your coaching or consulting or whatever, and then give you a testimonial on that. You can even go to some local businesses and offer your services for free or on a discount in order to get those testimonials. Now, the alternative to doing free or discounted work from the get-go is to pay an expert in your field that is doing what you want to do and pay them to train you or to coach you. And maybe they have a coaching program already you can sign up for, or you can work with them one-on-one, and they can be your mentor. That even if you've never done this thing yourself, they have produced results for their clients. So you can piggyback off of their credibility to give yourself credibility. So this is what I did. Instead of me doing a bunch of free work to get testimonials, I spent a couple $1,000s paying somebody to teach me how to get businesses results on YouTube and get businesses results through video marketing, because that's what they were already doing for their clients. And then I was able to then pitch my services to clients saying, hey, I know how to do this, because that was true. I knew how to do it. I had learned from somebody else who was successfully doing it. Now, I did not have experience doing it for past clients, but I had the knowledge on how to do it. Now, yes, once you combine knowledge with experience, then you can charge even more. So obviously my rate kept going up over time, but I was able to charge money from the get-go because I had the expertise regarding the knowledge, because I paid somebody for that knowledge. Now, if your service is very relevant to maybe your college degree, that's a version of that. You paid people at a college to teach you something, and now you're using that knowledge to sell it as a service. So you can piggyback off that as well. And sometimes, depending on the course you're doing, whether it's an online course or a coach or somebody's program, you can get some type of certification. You can even give credit to them of, hey, I learned from this guy. And that's what I would do in some of my proposals. I would say, hey, I learned from the best. This is the person I learned my strategies from. And then the business is like, well, I could either go to that guy directly and pay a bunch of money, or I can pay this guy, Chad, less money, but he knows his strategies. So obviously they'd go with me because they knew that I knew the strategies of the other guy who was charging much more than I was, because I still had less experience, but I still had the knowledge. And then over time, as I applied what I learned and I gained experience, I developed and evolved my own strategies. That was a combination of some of the things I learned and some things from the original coach and things that I learned from my own experience. So there are many ways you can start building a portfolio while you still are holding on to your current job, and that will set you up to be able to have an easier time finding clients. Step 7 is to start networking. This can happen in person and online. Make sure you optimize your LinkedIn profile, set up an account with apps like Shapper, and start making connections with people and telling them what you do. And come up with a 15-second phrase that sums up what you do as a freelance service and what you're offering. I even recommend opening up an Upwork account and getting a profile set up there. It's a freelancer marketplace. I have other videos all about how to do that. But make sure that you go into Upwork and you start applying to jobs. You start submitting proposals so that you can get practice. And you never know if one is going to turn into a paying client. Building connections is a long game, so don't procrastinate starting this. Start building connections while you still have your current job, while you still have a source of income. If you spent 6 months networking before quitting your job, you're off to a much better start. Also, this networking step helps you to start validating your business idea. You'll get positive and sometimes negative feedback, and you'll be able to hone in your service into what you feel like are really meeting the needs of the businesses that you've been networking with. You're starting to get to know business owners and people that are part of businesses that are your target audience, and you're starting to get to know what their needs are, and you're getting some feedback from them on what they're looking for, and that will help you hone your service and whatever you're focusing on in your business. Then step 8 is the transition. You've gone through the preliminary steps above. You have found your first paying client. Now, should you quit your job? It depends. Are they just paying you for one small project? If so, then no, don't quit your job yet. If they're giving you 10 hours of work per week, then it might be time to quit your job, because that could compromise your ability to do your full-time employee job well. Or there might be certain rules against that with your employer. Now, this transition, this is when it's really helpful if you've been following somebody like Dave Ramsey's financial principles of staying out of debt, having an emergency fund. If you've been wise with your money, then once you're ready to make this leap to freelancing, you're going to be better off, because there always is going to be a leap. No matter how well you've prepared, no matter how long you've taken to build up this foundation before quitting your job, there's still going to be a leap where you're not going to have enough income from your freelancing yet to fully replace your employee income. You're going to have to quit your job before you actually fully replace that income. In most instances, you're going to have to, because just simply the time commitment. In order to commit enough time to your freelancing, to earn enough money to replace your current job, you have to quit your current job to have that time. You don't want to be working 100-hour weeks, or you're going to be burnt out and you're not actually going to do well. You're not going to have the focus you need. So I recommend making sure you're out of debt and making sure you have an emergency savings to cover a little bit of buffer as you're going through this transition. So that's it for now. Stay tuned. If you want more training on how to become a successful freelancing dad, be sure to go to freelancingdads.com where you can learn more. Subscribe to my YouTube channel where I always release more videos on self-employment and freelancing. And I help guide you through this process of how to build up a business while building up a family and while putting family first, so that you don't compromise what matters most. I'll see you next time.